Today's taboo topic, the one not spoken about openly, is masturbation and pornography. The topic is highly ambiguous and controversial. Today's episode will consist exclusively of theses of scientific research, which lay everything out on the shelves. You will understand whether it's harmful, you will understand whether it's useful, you will understand what it leads to, you will understand how possibly to cope with this. Why are you so drawn to this? And what does the scientific world say about masturbation and pornography in its research today? If you watch this episode to the end, you will gain a lot of useful and necessary knowledge in this area. Well, let's go. As you know, a huge number of guys, well, probably everyone is engaged in this, and the whole world is divided into those who are engaged in this and those who lie. There is such a saying. And indeed, especially when there is no sex life, you want it when you don't have a partner yet, and especially when you are a little young. This is a way to satisfy yourself. These are animal calls in the desire to somehow quench this within yourself. Naturally, today, unlike, say, my childhood, when all this pornography on cassettes after the main film went somewhere, it was difficult to get. No literature was sold. Now, any schoolboy on the phone, especially if there is no parental control function, can find anything he wants. Watch it. There is even an interesting saying that today's teenager has seen more naked women in his life than in the Middle Ages. King, it's really so. Let's see today, my friend, what the scientific world says about masturbation. Why is it so harmful? If you think this is nonsense, it's actually not. I often get visited by guys who haven't yet made their sexual debut. That is, their sexual life has not yet begun, and they do not understand what a sexual life should represent. And it's special for them. If sexual life begins late at 25, at 23, at 30, then it's a very long period. It's precisely masturbation, surrogate sexual life as I call it, that leads to them having big problems later with real partners. In fact, they later have no organic problems at all. Very often everything is fine with masturbation, but it doesn't work with a life partner. Everything works on pornography. The reaction is good, but it doesn't work with a life partner. All of this has reasons. Today we will figure everything out. And through research, I will try to answer the most frequent questions that you ask. First question, does masturbation affect the hormonal background? One of your questions was whether it's true that frequent masturbation leads to a significant increase in testosterone levels, as some people claim. This probably came from Tyson Fury, who said that before fights he boosts his testosterone by masturbating furiously. Others say that if you masturbate a lot, you won't have any testosterone left at all. Some abstinence proponents claim it boosts mental focus and testosterone, using this to advocate for abstaining. What do scientists say? Exten and Kruger said that testosterone levels temporarily decrease after orgasm, but then they return to normal. They also measured that there is a release of oxytocin and prolactin. It is they who reduce the desire for sex, and at the moment in a second it disappears. It is precisely because of these two substances. Another study in China cited said that long-term abstinence, long-term, this is more than 2 weeks of abstinence, does not lead to a significant increase in testosterone levels. Any fact can be contradictory. And I really found studies that say testosterone levels increase, found studies where it was said that testosterone levels do not increase. I'm just sharing with you. Everything is very individual. But all these studies converge on the idea that the optimal ejaculation regime, that is the number of ejaculations for a healthy man to maintain health in a functioning prostate, this is 2 to 4 times a week. And 2 to 4 times a week does not have a negative impact on androgen levels. Masturbation and sexual function. Can excessive masturbation affect sexual function? Park and Wilson tried to answer this question in 2016. They concluded that excessive masturbation in conjunction with pornography can indeed reduce sensitivity and cause a syndrome of a tired penis. There is no longer that brightness of erection, the density of erection without pornography. On masturbation, with pornography, everything is fine. In ordinary life, everything is somehow weak, everything is somehow dull. These are indeed so-called sexual settings. Some men develop erectile dysfunction associated with excessive stimulation of the dopamine system. The constant light pleasure that you get at the flick of a finger, it dulls your dopamine receptors, and already ordinary sex, an ordinary woman will no longer excite you. And the power of excitement, you will always need to bring more, and more. And therefore, both the quantity and the harshness of pornography, if it is present in your life, often grows. Brody and Kruger in 2006 said that moderate masturbation can improve erectile function, reducing the risk of prostatitis. But excessive frequency is also, in Brody's words, more than 2 or 3 times a day, can lead to temporary desensitization of pleasure receptors. Interesting. Next, your question, does masturbation affect mental health? Reed and Carpenter answered this in 2011. They concluded that for people with compulsive sexual behavior, masturbation can become a way to avoid stress and can lead to dependency. Hard work, heavy study, business problems, no relationships. And getting easy pleasure is a way like a switch to quickly switch from something bad to something good. And as you know, many people start smoking again when something difficult happens in their life. They start overeating sweets. Or this picture, as a girl broke up with a guy, she sits and eats ice cream with spoons. People tend to want to switch when experiencing negative emotions. Before an exam, believe me, people often masturbate before some kind of interview. It's a way, so to speak, to let off steam. Frequent masturbation, especially associated with porn, correlates with anxiety disorders and depression. That is, they proved that depression develops more often if you masturbate. That is, 2 identical groups of people with the same quality of life. Those who masturbate to porn, they more often fall into some depressive states. Prose and Steele in 2015 came to the conclusion that moderate masturbation is not associated with depression or mental disorders. However, compulsive masturbation can lead to emotional instability. The topic is controversial due to the many variations in reality, leading to differing opinions on what's possible. Because depending on which study you will rely on, you can confirm your point of view that, for example, masturbation is evil. Or, for example, that masturbation is okay. As you can see, absolutely different conclusions from different scientists. And therefore, it is actually definitely related to the quantity, and it is definitely related to the form. And this can actually be a disease. Masturbation and addiction. Does it exist? Laff and Lair in 2015 came to the conclusion that frequent masturbation in conjunction with pornography can form an addiction similar to a drug one. The word pornography is mentioned repeatedly, so in this video I will analyze pornography in detail, as porn addiction is a significant issue today. Their conclusion is that changes in the brain's dopamine system reduce sensitivity to natural stimuli. That's why you become lazy, that's why you become a person who is hard to motivate, and it's hard for you to start something. It's hard for you to go to the gym because you're used to easy pleasure, to easy dopamine. Kuhn and Gulinat, 2014. Frequent masturbation with pornography is associated with a decrease in the volume of gray matter. Gray matter, that is, the brain is drying out from pornography, which can reduce the ability to self-control. Your question, I answered, does it affect physical health? 2,400 people have already responded this year. Frequent ejaculation may lower prostate cancer risk. Here I have something to say as well as to what they say. The optimal frequency is 4 to 7 times a week. Possibly there is a reverse dependency here, a reverse correlation, that those men whose libido allows them to engage 4 to 7 times a week, they have the opportunity and the desire. These men are hormonally healthier, leading a healthier lifestyle. Therefore, the connection that they have less risk due to masturbation or ejaculation, it's the same thing. Perhaps, should we say that the sun rises because the roosters crow? Therefore, let's approach this research with skepticism. Keller and Casey in 2016. Regular masturbation promotes prostate health and lowers risk of prostate issues. We often see stagnant prostatitis, which forms in patients who do not have a sex life. Because the levels of sex hormones are low, there are no nocturnal emissions, there are no these pollutions. If a man is not sexually active and has low sex hormone levels, which prevents nocturnal emissions, it can lead to stagnant prostatitis. That's why I probably agree here. And by the way, only prostate massage with regular sexual life helps such patients. However, they say that excessive masturbation can lead to irritation of the urinary system. I think many of you, when trying to show some heroic act to a girl in bed, instead of the usual 1 or 2 times, gave everything possible from yourself. There were 3 or 4 times, or having swallowed some Viagra, they did it 5 times. And in the end, they felt heaviness in the abdomen, pain, unpleasant sensations, and then wild weakness and a drop in strength the next day. If you've had such an experience of trying to impress someone, share it in the comments. We'll read, laugh, smile, and support each other in a manly way. I seem to have started a masturbation discussion, yes. And theoretically, masturbation does not affect testosterone. On the one hand, it can be something good, something bad, so probably each of you, but there is pathological masturbation. By the looks and the amount is definitely harmful. But today, the word starting with P echoed repeatedly: pornography, pornography, pornography. There, where there was always harm, the word pornography almost always sounded. That's why I decided to do a series of literature analyses and see what scholars are saying about pornography now. What impact does this light dopamine have on our brain? Let's go through the key moments of influence on the brain. First, Kuhn and Gulina. Regular consumption of pornography is associated with a decrease in gray matter. That's what we said. Second, Hilton and Watts in the year 2012. Frequent consumption of pornography can change the structure of the brain. Imagine, even the structure of the brain can change. And similar processes are observed in drug addiction. Let's discuss addiction and answer your question about it now. Lovelyer and Brandt in 2015 proved that pornographic addiction has neurobiological mechanisms similar to drug addiction, including a decrease in the sensitivity of the dopamine system. And believe me, there is a separate type of erectile dysfunction formed against the background of pornography abuse. This is erectile dysfunction induced by pornography. Perry in 2018. Regular use of pornography is associated with improved quality of relationships and decreased satisfaction with partners. The influence of pornography on sexual functions in 2016 by Park. In young men who consume pornography excessively, the frequency of erectile dysfunction increases. That's what I said. This is related to the desensitization of pleasure receptors. FAUS in 2012. Excessive consumption of pornography can change sexual preferences, leading to the need for increasingly intense stimuli for arousal. Once again, the amount of pornography, the frequency of pornography, and the intensity of pornography. And so, starting with some simple soft video, eventually over some period of time, having a huge amount of problems, you go into some kind of perversion. Perhaps because regular pornography no longer excites you, and naturally a regular girl, regular relationships form an insufficient stimulus for you. These are not the comfortable conditions you are used to. This is not the degree of compression you get. These are not the movement patterns you are used to. And indeed, you may develop problems in real life, impact on mental health. Wright and Takunaga in 2016 proved that the consumption of pornography is associated with an increase in depressive symptoms, anxiety, and social isolation. A very common picture that you see among many information technology specialists. Problems exist, such as those faced by recluses or gamers who excessively consume pornography. 17th year Perry and Harvard, intriguing. Research high frequency of pornography viewing correlates with low self-esteem and increased stress levels in a person. Horror's impact on views of actual relationships, Bridges. In his 10th year, he came to the conclusion that pornography can distort the perception of sex, reinforce gender stereotypes, and propagate aggressive behavior. As a practicing urologist, I can confirm this is indeed the case. People who are heavily dependent on surrogate sex life consuming porn have a very distorted perception of sex. They develop dysmorphophobia. They think their genitals are small, that their vulva is not as beautiful as it should be. They think their partner's penis is too curved upwards or too thin, and they just stop living a sexual life. I've had patients who came for reconstructive plastic surgery because they thought their penis was crooked, even though the curvature was insignificant. When asked, does it bother you? They would say, I haven't tried it yet. And my advice and the wish to my colleagues is never to operate on patients who have not yet had their sexual debut. Because by performing surgery on them, you're not actually solving any problem. Don't perform unnecessary surgeries. Also check out Lambert's 2012 study. Regular consumption of pornography reduces satisfaction with real intimate relationships. I'm translating into Russian. If you masturbate and consume pornography while doing it often, you will get much less pleasure from a real woman, from real sex. So, if we summarize today's issue, what did we come to? Absolutely everything has both pros and cons. And absolutely any fact I mentioned today can be refuted by finding some research. Here, everything is likely very individual. But one thing can be said for sure, that the abuse of masturbation and the abuse of pornography will definitely not bring anything good into your life. And undoubtedly, there are people who are adept at abstinence. Undoubtedly, there are people who, on the contrary, say that the more the better. Here, everything is very individual. As a urologist, I still lean towards moderation, absence of pornography in life, and the less masturbation, the better. Friends we love very much, this is my team, colleagues from work. Read the comments that usually appear under this video. And to break the degree of seriousness, I would like to hear interesting stories related to abstinence or masturbation. Maybe you've fought it in some funny way, or maybe you've realized you're dependent, or maybe you know someone else's story. And by the way, share your opinion about abstinence. For abstinence or against? Share these stories under this video, I will definitely read, and the guys will also read. Let's relax, laugh, maybe share our stories. So don't be shy, come under the video and write comments. And my friends, always try to bring your point of view because this is a very sharp topic. Try to deliver it as politically correct as possible. I hope I managed to do this today. You liked the episode and you got a lot of useful information. Have a good day.